It is a dark and stormy night, and in a very worn-down castle, the echoes of a battle can be heard through the halls. At this very moment, a battle is taking place to decide the fate of the human realm. The Demon Lord fires a blast that knocks the hero party to the ground, and he tells them that while they have impressive power, that they have no hope of winning this battle. One of the hero party members begins to lose hope, but then their leader stands up and tells them not to give up. As long as they have breath in their bodies, they still have hope, and after seeing him push forward, the party regains their morale and prepare to engage the Demon Lord in combat again. The demon is preparing a new attack, and a group of heroes put their plan into action. The mage casts his shield around the party, which blocks the demon's attack, but in the process is shattered. The tanker then rushes forward to draw his fire and gets hit with a punch that spews blood out from his body. But he is able to distract the Demon Lord long enough for the leader to get into position and attack. The other mage charges the sword with extra power as they put all their hopes and lives in the hands of the hero. There is a bright flash as the strike lands on the Demon Lord, but once the dust settles and the light fades, the hero falls down and spits up a pool of blood. His attack was successful, and the Demon Lord has been gravely wounded, but he states that though he has been defeated, his minions will live on for an eternity, and he too will eventually be reborn. This victory is only temporary, as when he returns, he shall bathe the world in his blood-soaked, edgy vengeance. It then fades to a little boy in the future, who turns out to be the reincarnation of the Demon Lord, and now that he is back, he'll get his revenge on the hero Max. As he basks in his own self-asserted glory, he is interrupted by his servant Xenia, who welcomes him back from his slumber. The Demon Lord asks where the rest of the demons are and is informed that the rest of them are still in a dormant state. For now, Xenia suggests that he put on some clothes, but when he gets her old clothes, he finds that they no longer fit him as well as they used to 10 years ago. If it wasn't already obviously, he has had a dramatic size change since his power has not fully been restored to what it used to be. Therefore, his body, muscles, and PP are now that of a child. But it turns out his gender has also changed. However, Xenia thought something like this might happen, so she took the liberty of creating some clothes that might fit his new form. He complains about the outfits he is forced to put on, but he has a smile on his face, so that leads me to believe that he actually enjoys it. But when Xenia pulls out a swimsuit, that is a line that he won't cross. But what did he expect when he decided to take fashion advice from Xenia, who was dressed like that? He asks about the hero and what he has been up to in the past 10 years. Surely he has done great things and has been recognized as a great man, but Xenia informs him that the hero has actually disappeared. Upon hearing this, he thinks that the hero must have separated himself from society in order to train himself for their next battle. But Xenia tries to dodge the subject and distract him with the work that he has to do. But the Demon Lord isn't letting it go that easily. He deduces that Xenia must be hiding something from him and pressures Xenia to tell him whether the hero is alive or not. He has to find out, so he uses his third eye and is able to sense the hero's energy in the world, therefore the hero must still be alive. He plans to pop over to the hero's location to tell him see him and come right back, but Xenia really doesn't want him to go. But the Demon Lord is not one to be persuaded out of doing things, even if it is something as reckless as visiting your arch-enemy while you are in a weakened state that he could easily one-shot. He flies off to see the hero, and Xenia apologizes to herself for not being able to stop him. As the Demon Lord flies over the human city, it appears to look more like a modern city than the medieval stuff you'd be used to. He's gotten himself hyped up to meet the hero again. But when he finally reaches the hero's location, he finds it shut in. The Demon Lord thinks he must have gotten the wrong room, but the guy confirms that his name is actually Max. And then he notices the holy sword in the corner of a room like trash. Max then realizes that the person in front of him is the Demon Lord, but he doesn't seem to care all that much. The Demon Lord then scolds him for keeping his room in such a messy state, and starts cleaning up the room and messing with his stuff. And he just seems to be enjoying the modern inventions of humans. Max asks him why he came here at all, and he finally remembers what he wanted to do. He makes his grandiose claim to power and states that he has returned stronger than ever, and this time he will surely take over the world with his power and might. But Max couldn't give a rat's ass about what the Demon Lord has planned. He doesn't want to get involved. The Demon Lord is confused that Max doesn't care at all when 10 years ago, he was so full of passion and conviction towards saving the world from the threat of the demons, but now he's just laying in bed without a care in the world. What could have changed? Max tells him that after he had defeated the Demon Lord, he was cast aside by the human world. They no longer needed a hero and forgot all about him, leaving him to fade into obscurity. A sad story, but one quick Google search later, it is revealed that every word he just said was cap. An article tells the story of his involvement in a scandal worth a married woman, but he swears that he didn't know she was married. But the scandals don't end there, for there is another article about him attacking a citizen. and while he says he was attacked by them first, the Demon Lord guesses that he was just drunk and lost his temper. And to put the final nail in the coffin and make it incredibly easy to cancel him, he cheated on 10 different women at the same time. It seems that that last one was actually not true at all. He had never met those women before. But as the internet goes, he was mimicked harder than Will Smith's slap, and there was nothing he could do about it. The Demon Lord tries to cheer him up by showing him some of his highlights, but when he pulls up a promotional video for Max, it turns out to be an utter cringe fest. The cheesiest speech that you would ever hear, and the Demon Lord is cracking up just listening to it. But that's how it goes when you are famous. The internet looks for ways to cancel you. The Demon Lord looks at a framed picture of Max's companions and him from 10 years ago. The demon starts to fawn over the old Max and his physique and potential, but it is starting to creep Max out a little. He hasn't seen any of his companions in years, which may be due to his insufferable superiority complex and egotistical nature, but he would never admit that to himself. He is going to stay like this, and he has no intentions of changing his behaviors in any way or trying to work on himself. He is a shell of the former Max. The Demon Lord realizes that this must be why Xenia didn't want to let him come here. She knew that when he saw the fallen hero, he would be incredibly disappointed that his arch-nemesis is now nothing but a shut-in societal outcast. He gives up on trying to spur Max back into his old ways and announces his intentions to leave, but before he goes, he states that he is going to reassemble his army and plan another attack on the human world, and since they don't have a worthy hero anymore, they will surely lose. It's going to be a cakewalk for him to win that fight. But Max couldn't care less. He is actually done with all that and really doesn't care what happens to the world or who wins the battle. His world is confined to his room, so he doesn't care about anything else. The Demon Lord then states that Max's companions are going to have a difficult time battling him alone, and maybe he might just pop on over to their house and kill them immediately to get it over with. But Max still doesn't care. In fact, he encourages it since he owes a lot of money to one of his companions, so if the Demon Lord kills him, he won't have to pay him back for it at all. That one was too far even for the Demon Lord. If he wants to act like a demon, then the Demon Lord will happily send him to hell once and for all. He charges up an energy blast in his hand and lunges at Max with intent to kill, but Max is still a hero after all. He jumps out of the way and in half a second, knocks the Demon Lord across the room with nothing but a pillow. The Demon Lord is in a weakened state, so if Max actually wanted to, he could absolutely decimate him without so much as breaking a sweat. The Demon Lord is knocked out cold and later wakes up in a dark room. He is in Max's closet and he wonders why Max didn't just kill him immediately. It only makes sense to eliminate a threat as soon as possible. He opens the door and finds Max looking at something with laser focus. His eyes are so trained in on it that he must be analyzing something important in great detail. Never mind, he's just looking at the hub. The Demon Lord is once again disappointed in Max. But before he can pull out the lotion, the Demon Lord steps out of the closet and tells him that he should at least wait until he is alone to do stuff like this. Later, Max is making some coffee, and the Demon Lord asks why he didn't just kill him when he had the chance to do so. It doesn't make sense to let the Demon Lord live. But Max isn't the hero anymore, so that isn't his job anymore, and in fact, with the current public opinion of him, if he were to kill the Demon Lord in his current state, there would probably be news articles about Max killing a defenseless child within the hour. They sit down to drink the coffee, and the Demon Lord acknowledges that Max has still got his power. He really knocked him out with just a pillow, and did it with style too. But on the other hand, the Demon Lord has lost his touch, which makes it laughable that he even thought he would be able to get away with killing the other hero party members. But he swears that he will regain his power once more, and when the time comes, they shall have a glorious battle. But Max cannot promise that the battle will happen. He may still care about his friends, but he actually does hate the world since there is nothing left in it for him. He has been cast aside, even if it was due to his own actions. And in the end, if the Demon Lord causes trouble, a new hero will likely rise up to battle him. The Demon Lord finally takes the hint and leaves, but then he returns later with groceries and starts acting like Max's girlfriend. Max is creeped out by this, and at this rate, he's going to get a visit from Chris Hansen. But the Demon Lord has decided to live with him, and they share a meal together. One bright morning, the Demon Lord yells for Max to wake up, but he is still out cold. She stands over him in a pink apron and tries to get him to wake up, but after he shows no signs of moving at all, she starts to wonder if he is even still alive. Later, she is washing the dishes when Max walks past her with the intention of going out. She asks where he is going, but he doesn't want to give a direct answer, so like a clingy girlfriend, she declares that she will be going with him. Max refuses to take her along, and she then accuses him of being embarrassed to go out with her. Max retorts that he can't just leave the house with a demon in a world that hates demons, so if she wants to go out, she should do something about her horns and third eye. Max leaves and the Demon Lord is suspicious of what he could be doing outside for the entire day. Maybe he is doing some sort of secret training in preparation for their battle, but she won't know unless she checks, so she decides to use her special transformation magic to change her appearance. She goes outside and admires the new infrastructure of the human world. It has better buildings and transportation, and she takes a look at it all. While the public also takes a look at her outfit. She is still on the lookout for Max though, and when she finally spots him from across the street, she begins stalking him. Max later goes out to a public park and sits down to enjoy the day while the Demon Lord wonders if this is how he actually intends to spend his entire day. But then the voices of kids can be heard in the park, and it becomes clear that he is there to meet a bunch of kids. After the kid leaves, Max goes to sleep on the park bench and the Demon Lord is fed up with watching him laze around all day, so she decides to go home and start making dinner for the day. But then a bunch of punks go over to Max and wake him up. They are obviously picking a fight, and they start insulting Max and telling him to leave the park, and that society would be better off without him. They get all up in his face and punch Max, and this is certified proof that Max is a good person deep down. He has every reason to catch some bodies right now, and the Demon Lord knows that he could absolutely demolish them if he wanted to, but he chooses not to send them to the hospital and takes the beating from the punks. Personally, I wouldn't let that slide, and neither does the Demon Lord. She activates her magic and causes the punks to fall down to the ground unconscious. This has made her revert to her normal form, and Max asks her why she waited so long to help him if she was there the whole time. The two walk home and the Demon Lord apologizes for not helping him sooner. Max says it's up, but now she should understand that he is no longer the hero that he once was. He is just a pathetic loser that spends his entire day drinking and can't even fight back against a bunch of punks like them. Though the Demon Lord thinks that he's a good person since he didn't just murder the guys out of anger, but she mocks him a little about what he said back there. Max chases her to get her to stop talking about it, and when they finally settle down, the Demon Lord says they should go home so that she can make dinner. But Max still has one stop to make before he heads home, and he tells her that he will be back before dinner time. Later, the Demon Lord is preparing dinner, and she wonders what was so important that he had to go do it this late at night. But she hopes that he isn't just drinking again. We cut to Max looking very serious as he walks down the dark street. He must be doing something really important if he looks like this. Never mind, he's just going to the video store. The next day, Max is standing on his balcony when he notices a girl walking down the street in a lewd outfit. The girl is the Demon Lord in human form, but as soon as she enters, she turns back to normal, and Max has no idea that the girl was her. He tells her that he just saw a woman dressed in the most provocative way imaginable, and the Demon Lord has no idea that he is talking about her. She prepares the food, and by the way, this entire time there has been a ghost in that closet, but we're just gonna ignore that for now. They are about to begin eating when the doorbell suddenly rings, and the Demon Lord tells him to wait for her before he starts eating. Max thinks it is just going to be a salesperson, but when she opens the door, it is Xenia that is standing there. Xenia is relieved to see that the Demon Lord is still alive, and the Demon Lord asks her why she is here. Xenia says that she was told that this would be a short trip in and out, but that was days ago, and the Demon Lord has not contacted her since then. Xenia then collapses onto the ground, and Mao brings her inside. Once Xenia wakes up, she starts to scarf down what was meant to be their dinner, and Max is upset that his dinner has been taken. He asks who this woman is, and Demon Lord tells him that she is her personal secretary. Max doesn't think she would be qualified to be a secretary, and Xenia takes offense to this, stating that she is so devoted to the Demon Lord that she walked all the way here for 3 days, and people kept looking at her weird, which she thinks is because she is a demon, but in reality it's because of that wagon she be dragging. Regardless, she wants the Demon Lord to return to the castle with her, but the Demon Lord doesn't want to leave Max yet. Xenia questions whether the Demon Lord may have fallen for Max at this point. Max doesn't particularly care if she leaves or not, but without the Demon Lord, he can't function. Xenia now takes it upon herself to sever the ties between the hero and the Demon Lord, so she pulls out the brass knuckles and prepares to box. Xenia doesn't have any aptitude for magic, so her only fighting capacity is throwing hands. However, the Demon Lord tells her that she is sorely outmatched if she wants to fight Max. She doesn't listen to the warning and lunges at Max, and the fight plays out the same way the Musk versus Zuckerberg fight would have played out. And Xenia ends up pinned to the ground, with a spoon to the eye. The Demon Lord tells Max to stop it and gets him to release Xenia, and Xenia apologizes for fighting him so suddenly. She now understands what the Demon Lord means when she says that Max is still a formidable hero. Xenia is now covered in sweat, so the Demon Lord allows her to use the bathroom to take a shower. While she is in the shower, the Demon Lord says that while Xenia isn't able to use magic, she is very dependable when it comes to gathering information. Xenia finishes her shower and steps out of the bathroom in nothing but a towel. The Demon Lord tells her that she can have any drink in the fridge, and Max complains about being hungry, so the Demon Lord apologizes and says she will go and buy something to eat. But Max sees a bigger issue, and if the Demon Lord leaves, he's going to be left alone with Xenia, and that is gonna be awkward as hell. Max realizes that she is drunk and tries to put some distance between themselves, but she pulls him back, and he ends up on top of her and gets flashbacks to all the lawsuits he got from these kinds of situations. He goes to get some green tea to give Xenia to calm her down, but Xenia is having none of it and gets ready to box again. She punches the green tea out of Max's hand and pulls off a nasty uppercut, which Max narrowly avoids. She has somehow gotten faster than she was before, and Max doesn't want to deal with this and makes the smart decision to dip. Xenia follows him out the window and loses her towel in the process, and upon landing, strikes a pose that Max will remember for the rest of his life. She starts chasing Max down the street, and she ends up chasing him into the park. Now Max is done running and he is ready to fight her seriously. But before the two can start fighting, Xenia is apprehended by the police, who state that it is against the law to run down the street naked. Xenia now realizes that she's been naked this entire time and breaks down in embarrassment. One of the police officers asks Max if he is okay, and Max replies that he is fine. But he feels bad for Xenia and covers for her so that she won't be arrested. The police officers let it slide. On the ride home, Xenia apologizes for all the trouble that she caused, and one of the officers seems to recognize Max as the hero and thanks him for saving the world. The next day, the Demon Lord apologizes for the trouble that Xenia caused, and Max says it's okay, but he wonders if Xenia has finally gone home. However, Xenia is still here, and she moved in next door to Max, so she'll be staying here from now on. Elsewhere, one of the hero party members sees a photo of Max and Xenia and finds it interesting. Back in the day, Max and his teammate were caught in a pretty heavy storm and are suddenly attacked by demons, but as the demons get close, they are suddenly repelled by a strong barrier. They are surprised that a barrier of such great magnitude had been erected here, but they don't question it and look for a town to rest at instead. In a nearby village, a priest is giving a sales pitch on the talismans that he sells to protect the city and how his talismans are definitely powerful and not a scam. Trust me, bro. Max and his teammate show up to the church, and the priest takes notice of them. He tries to sell his talismans to Max too, but he is a bit skeptical of their efficiency. And at the first sign of someone who questions his legitimacy, the priest gets annoyed and tells them to leave if they have no business here. But just then, the village gets attacked by a huge swarm of demons who manage to break through the barrier. The priest heads out to battle the demons as they head towards the village, but there are too many of them. The demons attack the villagers, and it looks like those talismans weren't a complete scam, but the bigger demons are still a threat. So Max and his teammates step in to protect them, and he remarks that the priest here is actually pretty powerful, and that is how the priest joined the hero party. Back to present day, everyone is sitting together when Xenia asks for Max's opinion on some documents, but he takes one look at that and goes, "I'm not dealing with this today." The document involves the defection of his friend Leo, and I guessed he didn't want to hear about that. He leaves the house, but is immediately cornered by a reporter who's trying everything she can to catch this man in 4K. She starts asking him about the last night's escapades with Xenia, and Max doesn't deny that it was him. He just tells her that Xenia got a little drunk and got out of hand. She then tries to accuse him of getting a minor drunk, but he calmly denies that as well. Failing to get a reaction out of him, she starts asking about Leo's defection, but Max doesn't give in to the bait. The reporter hasn't given up yet, and she plans to follow Max so that she can stalk him thoroughly. But Max has dealt with this all before and gives them the slip. As he returns home, Max is being watched by the priest. He plans to head in to talk to Max, but at that exact moment, Mao is currently trying to get him to take off his pants so that she can do the laundry. He rings the doorbell, and Max can already tell who it is going to be before he even opens the door. He tells Mao to hide so that he doesn't have to explain why the Demon Lord is living in his apartment. He opens the door and asks Fred why he is here, and Fred just says he came for a friendly chat. He remarks how clean Max's room is considering how much of a slob he used to be, and he keeps going around reminiscing of that old days. Max asks him what he is doing here, and after a bit more reminiscing, Fred finally gets down to business. It's about Leo defecting to the Gamma Republic. They say they are a republic, but it's more like a terrorist group that takes in all traitors and criminals, and they are growing pretty strong and might end up threatening war. Fred wants Max to return to the hero business, but Max says he is retired and going to stay retired. But that was Fred's entire point. If Max were to help in this fight, then he would be guaranteed an amazing rank and paycheck. By now, his savings must have surely nearly been depleted. A man of Max's stature can't be living like this, and if Max joined, Leo might even surrender before the war begins. But Max is firm on his answer, and he isn't going to change it for any reason. This is what his life has turned into, and there's nothing he will do about it. Max tells Fred to leave if that is all he had to say, but before Fred goes, he brings up the video of Max being chased by the naked Xenia. He questions how Max got to meet such thickness, and then reveals that he knows that Xenia is a demon. Normal people wouldn't be able to tell, but after spending so much time killing the demons, Fred could instantly tell that Xenia is a demon, and what would the public think if they found out that Max was hanging around demons? So now Max has two choices. Either he returns as a hero, or Fred is going to tell the world that he is hanging around demons and he will be branded as a traitor. Max says Fred has no proof, but realistically, with his current credibility, Fred wouldn't even need proof to get Max canceled for this. But regardless, Fred has all the proof he would ever need, since he can feel a lot of sinister energy coming from the closet, and he is sure is going to be a demon. But when he opens it, he sees a ghost. He gets freaked out and asks Max if there is anything wrong with his apartment, but Max doesn't see the ghost. At this point, Leo goes, "I'm out of here," since he may be a priest, but he was never trained in ghosts. At least we now know why the rent is so low. Fred leaves, and Mao finally comes out from the back of the closet. She apologizes for causing him so much trouble, but if it ever comes to it and Max is kicked out of the kingdom, then she would welcome him to her castle. Fred is still outside and wants to go home, but he's got a meeting, so his men have to drag him out of there. He hasn't given up on trying to get Max to rejoin hero work, but he is sure as hell never going into that apartment ever again. Some time passes, and Mao is up to something again. She has compiled a list of all the demon models and wants Max to pick one of them so that he can finally get a girlfriend. Max says he doesn't need a girlfriend, especially not a demon one, and that Ghost is getting jealous. But Mao insists that demons wouldn't really care that he went on a rampage and killed them 10 years ago, so there's no harm in checking it out at least. It gets Max a little curious as to what is actually in the book, and he goes to take a look, but the first one is Xenia. Xenia isn't a bad option, but with how she gets after getting drunk, he doesn't think it's worth the effort. Mao says that she's pretty normal aside from that, but Max isn't convinced. She tells Max to move on to the next person, and Rebecca the Orc. Mao says that she's a fine warrior, and more importantly, she's really good with her hands. She made her armor by herself after all. Max isn't really into that, so he goes on to the next person, and he thinks she's actually pretty hot, but then he sees the rest of her, and the snake tail isn't really his thing. Why can't there just be a human here? And to that, Mao shows him a girl that is a full-blown human, or at least used to be. So when asked if he found someone he liked, he says no. Out of curiosity, Mao asks what his ideal woman would be. He says they would have to at least look human, be chill, and have good cooking skills. Also silky black hair and an amazing body. And after hearing all this, Mao realizes that she might just know who Max might be interested in. She transforms into her human disguise, and it checks all the boxes. She jokes about how Max must be mesmerized by her appearance, and she would make a great wife for him. But Max is actually mesmerized by her, and she wasn't prepared for that. The doorbell rings, and Mao uses the opportunity to escape the awkwardness, and that Ghost is getting really jealous. Later that same day, Mao makes an offer to Max for him to join her demon army, but his answer is no, and he asks why she would even bring that up now. She says it's because his savings will probably run out soon, so he needs to start thinking of what he's going to do. And if he joins her army, it comes with a great salary. But considering he'll be an average soldier, his salary would only come out to $2.5 million. And that's not all. Yet vacation days and work days are limited to 5 hours maximum, as well as 4 days off a week. And to top it all off, you get free housing and healthcare. Where do I sign? There's also the fact that you will become immortal if you join, but that's a minor detail. This is a serious offer, and if he takes it, he will be free of all the suffering in the human world. But with a stoic face, Max declines the offer again. To him, it's not about his human dignity or whatever, it's more about if he gets all of that so easily, then he won't be himself anymore. And immortality seems like it would be slightly annoying after enough time. They accept his answer, but Xenia tells him that the offer is still on the table if he ever chooses to join them. But his problems don't go away because of his morals, so if he doesn't want to join the heroes or the demons, then he has to find some way to make some money. His idea is to become a YouTuber and rake in the money, but Mao doesn't get how that works. She goes to ask Xenia about it, and Xenia tells her that it's much harder than it seems on the outside. It takes hours of work a day, so Max may not be cut out for that. However, Mao is simply happy that Max is at least taking some initiative in his life, and who knows, maybe Max will become a great YouTuber. Max does not become a great YouTuber, and his video only gets 14 views. He is depressed by his failure, but he is still going to try again and creates various other types of videos, but they all flop. Max is just about ready to give up on this, but Mao says he should make one last video, and if it doesn't work, then he can quit. She even offers to help, and Max suddenly gets an idea. He gets Mao to do the live stream for him, and as it starts, Once she stands up to show her outfit, the view count immediately shoots up, but only because of her personality, of course. Max then instructs her to get a popsicle and eat it on stream for a review, and of course to get the full popsicle experience, she has to eat it without her teeth, but only for the popsicle experience, of course. And finally, the room is suddenly too hot, so she's going to take off her top, but the chat warns her that she's going to get banned for that. And by the end of the day, the account is banned. Max is about to head out for a brief walk when Mao stops him and asks where he is going. She wants to tag along, and Max ends up agreeing to it, so the two go shopping in the mall for some clothes. At the store, she's picking out clothes and asking if it looks good on her, but Max isn't too interested in playing the boyfriend role, especially since Mao technically was a guy before. The two spend the day hanging out at the mall, and at the end of the day, they head to the grocery store to buy some stuff for dinner when they run into a vendor serving free sausage samples, and as they are tasting it, the lady recognizes Max and asks to shake his hand. But as Max clasps hands with this woman, he realizes that she is no ordinary person. She's one of Leo's people, and she threatens Max to stay back, otherwise she's going to cause a scene. Max tells Mao to act normal and just head home without him. In the changing room, the girl compliments Max on finding himself such a nice girlfriend, but Max just asks her what she's doing here, and she says she's here as a spy. Meanwhile, Mao is outside worrying that Max will get himself into trouble again, so she contemplates following him to help, but before she can do anything, she is confronted by a large man. He tells her that she should follow him so that he'll take her to Max, and Mao, still having to play the role of a normal human girl, agrees to go with him. Max and the girl from before are still talking and catching up, and she brings up how Max let himself go since she last saw him, and he doesn't have a comeback to that. So he just asks how Leo is doing, and she tells him he's fine, and he's always asking about Max. At the same time, Mao is being led somewhere by the guy, and she asks him if he's from Gamma Republic. The guy doesn't deny it, but when she calls them terrorists, he gets angry and says the only reason they are out there is because the kingdom kicked them out into the wasteland. They had to work hard to make the place livable, but as soon as the kingdom figured out that the place had magic ore, they began trying to seize the land. She then asks if they are here to recruit Max, and that is the plan, but this guy doesn't really understand how recruiting one guy would make a difference. But if Leo says he should recruit Max, then he's going to try. Max is still talking with the girl and realizes that she is trying to recruit him to fight, but he wants to stay out of it. She still hands him an envelope with tickets in it, and with those tickets, he can be granted entry into Gamma Republic. Max says he will think the offer over, but just then, the other guy shows up holding Mao, and the girl is enraged that Will try to kidnap Max's girlfriend to get him to come with them. But even as he holds Mao, Max says she isn't his girlfriend, so he doesn't care what happens to her in the slightest. And Will is disappointed that this is the so-called great hero, and Max asks him why he cares enough to take a hostage if he doesn't think Max is all that great. However, he was ordered to get Max, so he warns again that if he doesn't go with them, then he'll hurt Mao, and his sister is still telling him to stop. But as he pulls her hair, Max runs up on him and knocks him into the water with incredible speed. His sister ends up swimming out there to get his body, and upon reaching shore, she tells him to apologize for causing trouble for Max. He apologizes, and Max forgives him for now. The two then say they have to leave soon and say goodbye to Max. As Max and Mao return home, she asks him if he isn't going to join the Republic, and Max answers under his breath that he doesn't want to because that would mean fighting Fred. When they get home, Max is taking pictures of the tickets so they can sell them online, and Mao asks if he really isn't going to go to the Republic. Max plans to sell them because you can't just go to a country that the kingdom has declared a terrorist group and expect to be able to come back anytime. If that's the problem, then Mao suggests that they can just use her teleportation magic to return safely. With that, Mao calls Xenia to tell her that they will be leaving for a bit, but Max never agreed to go. Mao runs over to him and begs him to go, but as he looks into her eye, he has been bamboozled. He wakes up to find himself on the ship, and there's no going back now. While they are in the Republic, Max wants to keep a low profile so that no one will recognize him, so he puts on some phony glasses and teeth. They walk through the city and see a bunch of hot springs there. It somewhat reminds Mao of what her home used to be like. Later they sit down, and Mao thinks this place is much nicer than the terrorist city the kingdom makes it out to be, but Max still thinks it is a ticking time bomb of conflict. He asks why Mao seems to care so much, and she says she sees this as an absolute win for her, since if the humans kill each other, then demons can invade easier. They spend the rest of the day doing random things one would do at a resort, and on the following day, they go to the petting zoo. But then an announcement is made that the area around the border is now a restricted area. Max is worried he was spotted, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Rather, it looks like the kingdom and the Republic are having a little fight at the border. Mao wants to head there and see the Republic and the kingdom fight, but Max sees that that is clearly just asking for trouble, so he just wants to go home. However, he can't go home since Mao already swiped the ticket, so he can't leave. Even if she wants to get there, Max questions how she intends to make it all the way there with the current state of emergency. But she got a plan for that. Thanks to the previous day's relaxing nature, she has regained some of her power and can now fly, but that doesn't last long as they fall out of the sky since she loses strength quickly as Max is quite heavy. They get to the border wall and see the Kingdom and the Republic in a standoff. The Kingdom fires magic missiles at them, but the wall has a protective barrier surrounding it which prevents their attacks from getting through. The Republic returns fire with sleep bombs, and as such the Kingdom's soldiers begin to fall asleep. Neither side is making any progress, but Max finds it hard to believe that the Kingdom doesn't have enough firepower to break down the wall. The Kingdom General analyzes the situation and deduces that the Republic must have just some kind of barrier around the wall, and thus formulates a plan. The Kingdom appears to retreat, but once the Republic has let their guard down, they start sniping them. With enough magic power and a good enough sniper, they can break through the wall fairly easily and give this guy a back alley barber cut. It's not looking good for the Republic, but then Leo comes running to their defense, and he starts spinning his spear to create a freaking tornado from just the Air Force alone. The Army General knows he can't beat a dude that can create tornadoes with just his hands, but the army will not stop until they've beaten him. At that moment, the sniper then hits Leo in the throat with one of the bullets that pierce the barrier. But it does absolutely nothing as Leo is simply built different. He then runs up and knocks out the sniper before ordering the army to retreat unless they want him to shove the spear somewhere very unpleasant. The army backs off and Leo goes to check on the Republic soldiers. He didn't know about the battle and came here because he thought he could sense a demon's aura. Mao was incredibly entertained watching all of this and praises Leo for being an admirable leader. Because of him, the Republic is able to stand their ground, but at the same time, he's their only source of strength. Now that she's seen Leo fight, Max wants to head home, so Mao gets ready to teleport them. But once she starts activating this spell, Leo notices it and begins attacking. Max starts running and Mao is unable to focus due to the rapid movement, so teleporting out of there is not an option. With how fast Leo is, running isn't going to get them anywhere, so Max turns to face him. Leo doesn't recognize Max due to his disguise, so he tries to play it off as if he is just a random passer, and Leo actually believes it. But there is no hiding that Mao is a demon, and Leo is determined to deal with her. He tells Max to hand over the demon and he will let this whole incident slide, and Mao tells him to just hand her over. If worse comes to worse, she can still revive herself later. The odds are stacked against Max, but he refuses to hand Mao over. Instead, he charges at Leo saying he will hold him off for 10 seconds until she can complete the teleportation spell. Max clashes with Leo and is able to withstand his attacks, but as soon as Mao starts casting the spell, Leo realizes what she is doing and launches a spear at her, but Max catches it. Leo is surprised that anyone can catch his ballistic spear, and he comes in for another strike. This time, he knocks off Max's glasses, and while his face is now exposed, Leo still doesn't recognize him until Mao calls out his name to tell him the spell is done. Leo finally realizes who Max is, and he has so many questions, but Max isn't going to answer any of them and just leaves. Mao and Max end up back at their apartment, and Mao thanks Max for protecting her back there. Now that they are back, Mao wonders what Xenia must be up to right now, considering that she usually comes running as soon as she is called. Max says she's probably just out shopping or something, but Mao remembers that she asked Xenia to go investigate the magic bureau where Fred works, and that is exactly what Xenia is doing right now. She is at the bureau in charge of making all the magic-based energy that the kingdom uses. She can't just walk in the front door, but she also doesn't want to be mistaken for a secretary, so she wants to go around back where there will be fewer windows. And that's when she pulls out the grappling hook and scales the building in broad daylight, and what's more, no one stops her. On the roof, she tries to get in through the door, but it is locked, so she begins lockpicking. Regardless, she makes it inside and is immediately confronted with an average salaryman, so she does the only reasonable thing and knocks him out. She then continues down the stairwell and knocks another random guy out. You then see her crawl into the air vent in very necessary angles. She makes her way all across the building and eventually gets to the server room and knocks this guy out with Thigh Jutsu. She starts hacking the mainframe and downloading all the valuable information, but then Fred walks in since he sensed a demon. She tries to escape with a smoke bomb, but Fred is able to catch her. He then chains her up and his assistant apologizes for letting a suspicious person infiltrate the building. Fred tells her to leave and he begins questioning Xenia. While Xenia may have infiltration 100, she did not spec into interrogation resistance, and Fred is easily able to trick her into giving up information, and he learns that the Demon Lord sent her. He then shows her the picture of her chasing Max naked, and at first she pretends not to know Max, but Fred already knows everything and he threatens her to reveal what she is planning. But before anything more can happen, his assistant comes in and tells him that he has a meeting to attend to. So he leaves his assistant in charge of watching Xenia. He heads out to meet His Excellency, and the guy wants to talk to him about Leo. Meanwhile, the assistant is starting to question the legality of keeping a woman tied up in your office. Xenia is panicking about being captured, but she knows she has to avoid revealing that the Demon Lord has revived. Xenia knows she has to escape, but she would also feel bad about doing something to her. His Excellency talks to Fred about the Gamma Republic situation, and the story goes that Leo took bribes and when confronted decided to defect, but realistically, Leo isn't the kind of person who would take bribes. He was likely framed, but Fred still says it was selfish of him to defect like that. However, the kingdom betrayed him, so what else was he going to do? His Excellency reveals that he has made plans to offer a peace treaty with Gamma Republic since the public opinion sides with them and they haven't actually attacked the kingdom in any way, so he wants Fred's support with that. Meanwhile, Xenia is plotting her escape band. Even though she can't use magic thanks to her handcuffs, she can still use her spy tool, a bottle of grease. She pours it on herself, but doing so makes her look very soz, so the assistant notices that she is trying to escape. Now that she has been caught, she resorts to simply breaking out of the handcuffs, and the assistant now realizes that she's quite dangerous. His Excellency Grimm now finishes up his meeting and leave, but he is not as nice as he seems and had orchestrated a bombing in the Magic Bureau. After the bombing, Xenia wakes up in the room where she was held hostage, but the secretary has been knocked out cold. She immediately thinks of running away, but she remembers how the assistant treated her well despite being her captor, so she decides to save her. As she runs through the halls with the assistant on her back, police have surrounded the building and she realizes that she can't leave without getting what she came for. Meanwhile, Max is relaxing at home when Mao runs over to tell him about the explosion at the Magic Bureau and that she sent Xenia there to investigate. But there's no way Xenia would do something like bombing the building. Right. They decide to just ignore it and hope it goes away, but then Xenia comes in holding a bloody person and a safe. The assistant wakes up in the futon and Mao, who is in her human form, greets her. She says she found the assistant outside injured badly, so she brought her in and dressed her wounds. The assistant believes this and says she has to get back to work, but Mao doesn't want to let her go that easily. Instead, she starts using her hypnosis to convince her that it is not worth working for Fred. She gets her to give her name, which is Lim, and she is about to sign the demon contract before Max comes in and stops it. They later apologize and explain to her that the whole infiltration plan was their idea and Max has nothing to do with it. Lim asks if the two are demons and they admit it. She asks for an explanation on why Max is housing demons and Mao makes up a whole sob story about Max saving them from the streets after they were left with nowhere to go. And she buys the story. She asks if they had anything to do with the bomb, but Mao denies ever letting Xenia handle any explosives. Xenia thought it was Lim's flame magic that caused the explosion, but it wasn't her either. Lim's phone suddenly rings and she's being called by Fred. She answers and he asks where she is right now. She explains that she lost consciousness after the explosion and is currently at Max's house. Fred asks to speak to Max and accuses him of being the culprit of the bombing. He admits that he hangs out with demons, but the bombing had nothing to do with him. He wants to have a discussion, so he says he'll meet Max at his house. But then he remembers the ghost trauma he experienced and decides that they should meet at a restaurant. The ghost is still haunting Fred, however, and he passes out in fear. Meanwhile, the kingdom's cabinet has a meeting to decide their next course of action, and they blame the bombing on the Republic. They can't fight a war with them since Leo would wipe the floor with them. But if they manage to get one other hero to fight him, it could win. Max and Mao meet up with Fred and Max tries to explain that he had nothing to do with the bomb. However, Fred already knew that he was innocent. Max thinks the story is over, but Fred still wants something in return for turning a blind eye to Max's collusion with the demons. Max tries to offer Mao to him for the night, but Fred says he'll pass. What he wants is for Max to join the kingdom and fight Leo. Otherwise, he will turn the kingdom against him. But Max isn't going to take the threat, and he is fully willing to go to the Gamma Republic and fight on their side if Fred keeps pushing him. They start fighting, and Mao has to unleash some of her power to calm down the situation. But that alerts Fred to the fact that Mao might not be an average demon. Max leaves, and Fred says this isn't the end of it. Max gets home and finds that Fred managed to get the last laugh as he had put laxatives in his food. Back at the Republic, they get ready for war since the kingdom framed them for the bombing and is going to use it as an excuse to start a war. This was the end of episode 8. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.
Subscribe our channel for more fast updates. Thank you.